And joining us on the phones right now from the executive vice president of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold, joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show. Brandon, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great, Chad. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Tell folks before we get into some of the ESG topics that we wanted to get into today. Just kind of tell folks a little bit about the organization, the National Taxpayers Union.
Yeah, National Taxpayers Union. We believe that taxes should be lower, the government should be smaller at all levels, and it should be more responsive to American taxpayers. So we work at the federal level in Washington, D.C., at the state level and state capitals all across the country to serve as a taxpayers lobbyist, to try to represent the interests of taxpayers before legislators and before administrative agencies, and make sure your voice is heard in state capitals in the nation.
Well, I know that y'all have been taking a look at some of the, I guess we could say some of the ESG investing and the ESG movement that is out there. For those who may not know exactly what ESG is, kind of define that for our listeners.
Sure. It stands for environmental and social governance. And essentially what it means is pursuing what is oftentimes left-wing ideas, environmental goals, trying to reduce carbon emissions, for instance, social goals, sometimes pushing a variety of different social interests. Again, these tend to be left-wing oriented goals. And we've seen that pop up at the corporate levels. Definitely certain corporate entities are launching these initiatives. And we see this in financial institutions offering ESG investment options. So if you want to support these left-leaning causes, you can invest in companies that advocate those particular goals. But where I start getting concerned about this is where we see governments engaging in ESG actions. And that can happen on both the left and on the right. And I think the response from the left is unacceptable, but the kind of counter response has overshot the mark in many instances on the right.
So what has been the response by some on the right, and why is it off the mark in your opinion?
Yeah, so what I think the state government, or federal government for that matter, but mostly what we're talking about ESG investing, is state governments. What state governments ought to do is deliver the services that are necessary, the core government services that are necessary at as low a cost as they possibly can, assuming that they're hitting, quality metrics, reasonable quality metrics there. And what has happened on the right is kind of in a response to some lousy policies that we've seen out of California and other blue states. They've did their pension funds in certain instances from tobacco companies. They don't like tobacco. That's fine. They've kicked them out of their pension funds. They can't. The pension funds can't invest in any stocks related to tobacco, and that costs pensioners. It costs them billions of dollars in the case of California. And now what we're seeing on the right in states, including Texas, but many others, Oklahoma, New Hampshire, many other states that are more red in nature, they're like, we're not going to do business with any financial institution or other company that does anything related to ESG. And this is just the other side of that same coin that we're seeing in California, Massachusetts, and other states. It's saying we're going to apply this ideological litmus test to what our state government does. And I think that exceeds the scope of what state governments ought to be doing. And, of course, it's accompanied with a higher price tag, because when you kick financial institutions, for instance, out of bond markets, you have fewer people that are fewer companies that are bidding on these bonds, and you end up raising costs on taxpayers, and taxpayers ended up getting caught in the middle of this ESG war.
What do you hear from folks who maybe on the right who say, well, wait a minute, these companies are doing harm to what we believe in, and they pursue would cause harm to the economy in Texas or in the United States, and so we're just trying to look out for our policies that we endorse here.
Yeah, I totally understand where those folks are coming from, and I get frustrated with some companies as well. But I think the state government, when they start fighting these battles on behalf of taxpayers, first of all, different taxpayers are going to have different viewpoints. So to come forward and say Austin is going to decide which are acceptable companies to work with and which aren't, I think is a huge litigious mess, because if somebody says, well, we rejected a loan application from a gun retailer, well, did they do so because they are engaging in some sort of ESG activity where they were boycotting any gun businesses, or are they doing so because the credit scores and the credit worthiness wasn't high enough standards to issue that debt? We don't know, so that can easily turn into this administrative, legal, bureaucratic battle that I don't really want to see government go down. But more broadly, I think when individuals get frustrated with companies, the most effective tool they have is their wallet, not their legislator. And we saw this most notably when Bud Light launched this campaign. They had a transgender individual as part of their ad campaign. There was enormous boycotts. And if you went into a liquor store during that period, you would see plenty of Bud Light on the shelves and very little Miller Lite, Coors Light, other products not part of the Anheuser-Busch family that were. So voters stepped up, taxpayers stepped up and said, we don't like this. And guess what? Anheuser-Busch had to do a major course correction afterwards. Yeah. That was way more effective than what state governments can do.
Do you get worried about the slippery slope of, okay, well, voters may like what the government is doing now when it comes to some of the anti-ESG stuff, but if let's say the state were to ever turn blue, and you have the history of saying, okay, we're going to go against companies that don't believe in what we believe as a government, then you see the liberal side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't want our investment decisions ping-ponging based on who happens to be in control in Austin or in Sacramento or Annapolis or whatever state capital. You don't want that swinging back and forth, because when you do, you're going to have huge disruptions in government services. You're going to have to, again, it becomes an ideological litmus test of who we like, who we don't like, instead of what we ought to be focusing on, who can deliver quality services, quality financial products to taxpayers at the lowest reasonable cost. That is the business that our government ought to be in. And then us as individuals, listen, there are plenty of organizations that you can participate in. There are coordinated efforts. You can get your buddies on Facebook or Twitter or Truth or wherever and say, listen, this company is doing ridiculous things and they're doing all these activities, investing in organizations that we fundamentally disagree with. We're not going to do business with them. And I think that is more reasonable. I think that is more American than having the government, whether it's the federal government or the state government, determining what things we like and what things we don't like.
Visiting with Brandon Arnold with the National Taxpayers Union. Brandon, where can people find more of the work that you guys do and kind of keep along with all the difference are taking a look at?
Yeah, NTU, National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org is our website. We're certainly on all the socials, YouTube. We have plenty of videos out there you can watch, you can comment, you can tell me I'm brilliant, you can tell me I'm an idiot, whatever you'd like. We'd love to hear your comments. And Twitter, Facebook, you name it, we're out there. All
right, Brandon, always a pleasure visiting with you. Appreciate your time today, and I'm sure we'll visit again down the road.
Thanks so much, Chad. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's Brandon Arnold with the National Taxpayers Union. You can visit their website, get more information on their website, and join